Hey guys, today we're going to do a brief biography of a Kingsport, well-known Kingsport lawyer named Burkett McInturff. Before Burkett passed away, he said, "I want you to take these and you keep them and you share them with people. I don't want nobody else to have them." I said, "Okay." He hands this to me, the envelope full of pictures, chock full of pictures, and on the back of each picture, Burkett writes the story in his own handwriting. Let's see. I haven't had these out in a long time. All right. Burkett's parents. It says Minnie and his father, Ed. And Ed's 19, and this time Minnie's only 14 years old. This is when they meet. And in 1916, they get engaged. And eventually they get married. And in 1918, September the 5th, 1918, Burkett's born. This picture was taken May of 1919. So Burkett's just a little boy, age 8 months, he says. Now his mother's name was Mary. And Burkett was the firstborn, but he had 3 sisters and a brother. So here's him and 2 of his sisters. And this is also about the time that his father would take him to Dayton to watch the Scopes monkey trial. Burkett's a little bit older than that when he goes to see the Scopes monkey trial. He's only 4 years old in this picture. But even before he attended the Scopes monkey trial, about this age right here, he was in downtown Decatur and his father was inebriated and he was driving a car, and someone reached in and took the keys out of the car, and they waited and the cops came and they arrested Burkett's dad. And Burkett's dad, Ed, said, "What about my little boy?" And the cop said, "That's not our problem," and they took him to jail. And Burkett was barefoot, he was in overalls, wasn't around anybody really that he knew, and he just started walking. He was miles and miles and miles from home. Back then they didn't have big highways, it was all dirt roads and fields, and he made up his mind then that he was going to be a lawyer. 4 years old, and he decides he's going to be a lawyer. That's amazing. Then later he goes to see these different trials in town and watch these 2 different attorneys that pretty much are the only lawyers where he lives in Meigs County. And he gets older, and he's always the smallest boy. This is the basketball team he was on in 1929, and he literally is the smallest boy there. Burkett goes on. He's really smart. His dad works him, sets him in the fields early on, but they're also focused on Burkett's education because he's a very smart kid. And so there's a balance there. He works mules for his father. They pick strawberries in the month of May. All these different things. He's raised in the fields, working hard, and he's also focused on school, education. He stays busy that way. And he goes to college, and he gets his bachelor's degree. And then he got a job with the TVA, and had a good job with the TVA, doing surveying and different things. There's a story about that in one of the books. But and then World War II breaks out, and Burkett joins. And he's a private during World War II. And this picture was taken about 1944. One day, this colonel pulls up in a Jeep, and he says, "You want to become an officer?" And Burkett pretty much says, "Well, let me think about it." And then the colonel says, "Hell, son, think about it. No, get in this Jeep if you're going." And he did. He joined, he went to officer candidate school. And then eventually, when the war was over with, he got out of the Army, and he used his GI Bill, or something equivalent to that, to go to law school. Went to law school, graduated top of his class, at Cumberland College there in Lebanon, Tennessee. It burnt down. It's north of Nashville. But at any rate, then the Korean War came about, and because Burkett had become an officer, then they summoned him back because he was commissioned. They reactivated him. He was already a lawyer, established in Kingsport, and the worst day of his life, he said, was 1951 when he got the letter that he had to report for duty for the Korean War. And this is Jimmy. This is his son Jimmy in 1949. And this is before he goes. This is 1951. He says, "This is the worst day of my life." And you can tell when he wrote this that he was upset. So, but yeah. As far as the people that I've met writing these books, Burkett's right up there with my favorite for sure. There's a lot of people that I really get attached to, but Burkett was definitely one of them. And here he is as a company commander in Korea. Here he is with Captain Allen, I believe. Yep, Captain Allen in the picture there. And this picture was actually taken by a famous colonel at the time, but he becomes a general later. You have to read Burkett's book to find out who that was. Really, really neat guy. He became friends with this guy. And this guy opposed some of the things that were going on later on during the Vietnam War, and was all Edwin. What was his last name? I can't remember. But anyway, Burkett was a family man. He was always part of his family's life. This is the early 1950s as well. This is down in Hamilton County, the porch of his grandfather, Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris for Burkett was really his all-time favorite person, probably aside from Ed McInturff, his father. This is Burkett's son Jimmy here. This is in 1950. After Burkett's already a well-established lawyer. This is one of Burkett's friends, it's Sergeant Guy Ferguson. It's like the 63rd Division, 254th Regiment, at any rate. Here's Burkett again, right before. This is that bad day in his life when he's fixing to leave to go to war as a company commander on the front line. This is in 1966, I believe. Yeah, 1966. It's just a few weeks before Burkett's father, Ed, passes away. Here's Ed here. But there's a lot more in the envelope, but those are in some kind of order, I think. This is in 1961, I believe, when Burkett and a friend go up to Washington, D.C. If I'm not mistaken, it's Doug Burt in the picture with him. He was an Episcopalian minister. I believe that's who's in the picture with him. You know, I'm not positive, because at some point, I guess the writing got wet. But I don't know. You know, as Burkett's biographer, I got to know him really well. There was these kids that used to come from a film school in Western Carolina, and they would film him telling these stories, and they were going to get me the copies of the DVDs and stuff, and I guess they just never got around to it. Tried to contact them several times, and hey, if y'all come across this, guys, contact me. Let's get his stories out there, because as far as storytellers go and adding color to that, he's really good at that, and I think it's a good way to still honor him. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. This was Burkett's first biography I wrote, and this is something he saw while he was still alive. And I'll show you something. He loved this book, and one day I said, "Will you sign this?" And he said, "Well, sure." And he starts to sign it, and somebody comes along and they distract him, so he doesn't finish his signature. And a different occasion, this is in late June, the Thursday before he dies. He dies on a Friday, and he was having a rough day, and his signature is so different when he signed it here in green. Totally different than those confident strokes. And I remember later that day, Lisa called me and she said, "Jason, I don't know what to do. He's talking, he's just talking nonsense. I don't know what to do." And when I got off the phone, I got to thinking that he'd had a stroke. And the next morning, I was on my way to work at the theater in Greenville, and I got the text from Lisa that it said, Burkett's gone on to be with Jesus. And anyway, that was a rough week. It was a lot of ways, it was like losing my Papa Judd all over again. Because this was a guy that was very much like my Papa Judd, except he had the education. Burkett had the credentials, the education, the confidence. My Papa had the experience, but not the education. And in my eyes, and my Papa Judd's experience is a good thing. And but Burkett, man, he was successful in that courtroom because of his education, because he always studied, and because he was a smart guy. And he had the experience too. I mean, World War II, the front lines in Korea, I mean, they broke the mold with somebody like that. He just was fearless. But anyway, I didn't mean for this to last 11 minutes and 20-some seconds. Thanks for tuning in. There's your character sketch for Burkett McInturff. If anybody wants copies of these pictures, let me know. I'll be happy to give you some copies of them. Or you can look in these books and you can find the pictures in the books. Every picture that I showed you is in these books. All right. See you later, guys. Bye.